I want to start off by welcoming everyone to the after rally. And I want to thank the Mercury Cafe. I love this place, and I know that we will read about this place in history. Let's hear it for the Mercury Cafe. You know, there's those hot spaces all over the country where things are really happening, and this is one of those hot spaces. So the other thing is how about that earlier theater we were watching for a few moments there on television? I mean, you know the two characters, right? Obama and Romney. You saw that theater, didn't you? But now let's hear it for the content that was delivered a few moments ago on Democracy Now! By my running mate and the next president of this country, Dr. Jill Stein. Can you imagine what it's going to be like when we have two women, two mothers in the White House? And boy, am I looking forward to next week when I head to Kentucky to debate Biden and Ryan. Won't that be something? You know, while Jill was whisked away to be on Democracy Now!, I had the pleasure of being where the real democracy was and marching with Occupy in the streets of Denver before I came here. But you know, debates are the only way that non-billionaires can be seen before tens of millions of voters. But I believe that tonight we made history, that with Democracy Now!, with Free Speech TV, the internet, social media, you in this room, we will break the blackout and we will be heard. No longer will we have third-party candidates in this country that will be invisible. We will be heard because there is no other choice but to be heard. Another world is possible, and another U.S. is absolutely necessary. We will be heard on issues of corporate crime, fraud and abuse, the need to increase the minimum wage. We will be heard on issues of immigrant rights, about children being denied health care only because they don't have citizenship. And we will be heard on the prison industrial complex, of having more people in prison than any other place in the world. Did you hear Romney or Obama talking about that in their theater? Well, we will continue to lift our voices and be heard in our opposition to the killing of Mother Earth, of drone strikes, to war, to police brutality, and to the violence being committed on the Palestinian people. To our sisters and brothers who are also dying every day across America in a drug war, and dying because they can't get access to something as basic as a recovery program. To the workers who are dying in our workplace, and the workers that are not being allowed to organize. to the thousands who die freezing to the death on the streets of the wealthiest nation only because they don't have a home. We will be heard. We are waking up from our slumber as a nation. We are overcoming our fears. We are joining together, and we are joining our army together and preparing to take our country back. And I am excited because we are just getting started, and democracy is coming to the United States of America, and it's going to be in our lifetime. It's coming to the Mississippi Delta, to the Pine Ridge reservations, to Red Lake and White Earth. It's coming to our border towns, and it's coming to the 99%. And we are getting organized, and our blinders are off, and we're never putting them back on again. Never. We will never again believe their lies when they tell us that there's not enough to go around. They just mean that there's just not enough for us. But there is. And with the Green New Deal and Jill and I in the greenhouse, seniors will be able to live out their retirement without fear of not being able to pay their medical bills. And children will be able to play in beautiful green parks instead of dodging bullets on their way to school. And our military can lay their guns down and become organic farmers. What do you think about that? Yes, we have just a few more weeks to go left. But history is being made, and there's no turning back. The Green Party is rising against the empire. We will have in our lifetime the Greens in debates. We will have in our lifetime more than 2 corporate parties to choose from, and we will take the money out of politics, and one day we will have fair elections and elimination of fraud, and people will vote for people who walk the walk and don't just talk the talk. Yes, we will have these things. I have traveled for many years across this country. I have heard the foreclosure stories. I have seen the tears. I have seen the tears of those dying who don't have access to medical. I have visited the prisons. I have said goodbye to loved ones who have been deported. I have been to the trailer parks, the reservations, and the barrios. And I live on Mutter Street, one of the poorest streets in America. And I have seen the devastation with my own eyes. But you know what? I have also seen the beauty. I have seen the strength, and I have seen the courage, and I have seen an incredible amount of love. Yes, I dare to talk about love in a presidential campaign. An undying love for each other against all odds, an undying love for community and for the land and our earth, and they will not stop us. We will register the people on each and every block. We will take to the internet, and we will march the marches. And on election day, we will make history and we will rise for our children and the next generations to come. No, we won't listen to the spoiler argument anymore, because after all, you can't spoil something that's absolutely rotten. You know, our children, my son Guillermo, your children, and the children of our country and around the world, they deserve better. It stops this year, 2012, on Election Day, as we occupy the ballot booths and we finally say, democracy and the Green Party is here, and we are going to take back America and right the wrongs of our country. The Green Party is rising, and it will not be stopped. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tanya Ishikawa.
And I'm Angelia McGowan, and we are with Denver Open Media.
And I'm also with the Colorado Green Party. And tonight we're here at the Mercury Cafe, and we're interviewing several people at the Stein Hankala campaign party. Jill Stein and Sherry Hankala are the Green Party candidates for president and vice president. And today's October 3rd, and we've just had the presidential debates in Denver, and they were locked out. They weren't allowed to go into the debates, even though they are on the ballot. So Democracy Now! Had a program where they were allowed to do an expanded debate, which is what they did is they paused the debate right after Romney and Obama did their part, and they had Jill Stein and they had the other candidate from the Justice Party, Rocky Anderson, give their take on the questions as well. The Commission for Presidential Debates is actually the organization. It's a corporation, a private corporation that organizes the presidential debates. A lot of people don't really realize that it's organized by this corporation that is actually run by Republicans and Democrats. And so they don't want to have the third parties, the minor parties, participating, because then it would take the focus off of them and people would get to hear what these other candidates have to say, which they might like. And I'm here with Susan Hall, who's a candidate, a Green Party candidate for Congressional 2 District in Colorado. Susan, what did you think about the debate tonight, especially Stein's participation?
I thought it was really wonderful. I think it's wonderful to see democracy at work. These expanded debates are exactly what we need. We need to see some other views, some other ideas, and especially the Green Party ideas. They address the economy, they address healthcare, they address the wars that continue and actually are breaking our country as far as economy goes. They are addressing all the issues of today, but in a new way.
Wonderful. And what do you think about Jill Stein as a candidate for president?
I think Jill Stein is absolutely wonderful. I have seen how she can address all these issues, still keep her head up, and I especially appreciated how she was still out there with the Wall Street people today. I mean, she's right here with the middle class and the poor. She's for the public, and I really appreciate that.
Great. And you're running for office. Tell me a little bit about your race here in Colorado.
Well, I'm running in District 2, and most of my district goes from Broomfield clear to Wyoming on the west side of the highway, and from Broomfield to the city of Avon. So in that district, we have had some real concerns about climate because we've had a number of fires. So we also have to be concerned with fracking and what that does to our environment. We're concerned with the Halliburton loopholes, of course, and exchanging water for oil. That's very disconcerting in our district. Another thing is jobs. Jobs is huge right now. I understand that there was a first grade position open in Boulder with 470 applicants for that one position. So we need to get our economy rolling. We need some support. Dr. Jill Stein's new Green Deal suggests that we really help those jobs and the economy, and provide grants for new businesses, help the student loans. By helping the student loans, they can look forward to having jobs when they get out of their education. Also, it's time to bring our soldiers home, cut that military spending. We're in Afghanistan, Somalia, we've been in Libya, we've been in Yemen. We have still soldiers in Iraq. We don't need to be all over the world. We need to bring those soldiers home and let them have jobs and let their money be in our own country.
Very true, very true. So I just wanted to ask, you're running against Jared Polis. He's the incumbent, and he's a Democrat, correct?
Yes.
And so I guess your campaign is somewhat similar to Jill Stein's campaign in that she's running against an incumbent Democrat. Why do you think it's important for both of you to be running against a Democrat? Some people say, don't run against Democrats.
You know, I've been up and down the street in the Pearl Street Mall, and the people that I hand my flyers to, they are very disappointed with Representative Polis, because they said that he was supposed to go to Washington and be against the war, but he signed the sanctions on Iran, and a lot of people believe that that was just a means to rattle the sabers. It's a means to expand the war, and it doesn't say at all it's time to end these many continual wars.
What do you think of the idea of an expanded debate where the Green Party candidates were actually able to participate in the debate as well, getting their voices in there? What do you think about that?
I think absolutely that Jill Stein should have been included in serious presidential debates. Gary Johnson, Libertarian, should also be included in the presidential debates. Any candidate who is on the ballot in enough states to have a mathematical possibility of being elected president should be included in debates. I think that Mitt Romney and Barack Obama are not morally qualified to be considered as candidates for any office, though. And it would be a shame to have them on the same stage as candidates like Jill Stein and Gary Johnson, who are principled, serious, and legitimate candidates for president. Barack Obama is really the war criminal in chief. Mitt Romney wants to take that position from him. Jill Stein and Gary Johnson are running for president to represent the people. They believe in a constitutional government that represents human rights and respects people, as opposed to serving corporations.
And you actually answered my next question, but I'll ask it again just in case there's more that you would like to add. What do you think of Dr. Stein as the presidential candidate?
I think Jill Stein is an excellent candidate, and I'm proud to support her in the upcoming election. I think that she would be the best candidate to hold the office of president if she were elected that we've ever had holding that office. I'm happy to have her as our Green Party standard bearer, and I'm glad to see that she's gotten on the ballot to represent 85% of the country, and I hope she can take it as far as possible.
Okay. Now, you're running for office here in Colorado. Please tell us about your race.
I'm running as a Green Party candidate for U.S. Representative from the 1st Congressional District. That represents all of Denver, plus part of Arapahoe County, including Cherry Hills Village, Englewood, Sheridan, Glendale, and a couple of other suburban communities. I'm running to oppose U.S. militarism, to end U.S. imperialism. I support a single-payer universal health care system, full legalization of marijuana, respect for human rights around the world, carbon taxes to include the real environmental impact of goods and services and their price. My campaign represents nonviolence, ecology, grassroots democracy, and social justice, which are the core values of the Green Party movement worldwide.
And again, you were really great. You answered my question in advance of the next question, but I'll ask again in case there's anything you would like to add. Why is your candidacy important at this time?
My Green Party candidacy is important because I'm taking a stand to speak truth to power, to give voters an alternative who represents real change, real political reform. We have a system in this country that's based on winner-take-all voting, and that tends to create a system where there are only two parties that are taken seriously. Both of those parties represent a nearly identical corporate agenda. Most other countries use proportional voting systems, which give fair representation for women, for minorities, for alternative political parties. It enables a party that gets 5% of the vote, instead of being ignored, to win 5% of the seats in the legislature. That's the kind of system that we need to enact in this country. I support adopting the system that's used for Australian elections for their Senate, to elect our House of Representatives and Congress. People could cast a vote either for the party of their choice, or they could cast a detailed vote ranking candidates first choice, second choice, third choice, and then that way they get representation for the candidates that they want, rather than having to vote for the lesser of two evils.
Okay. Tell us about Move to Amend.
Thank you for asking. I am on the National Executive Committee for Move to Amend. Move to Amend is a nationwide grassroots organization dedicated to amending the U.S. Constitution so that it says clearly and unequivocally that corporations are not people and money is not speech. It's an issue that is very important to America right now because we basically have lost our democracy. Our democracy has been taken from us by the influence of money in politics, both corporate money and money from individual millionaires and billionaires, and they're using that money to drown out the voices of individuals like you and like me.
Tell me a little bit about just define your role with the Green Party and you being based here in Denver and the first presidential debate being in Denver. How does it feel?
My role with the Jill Stein campaign is as general counsel. I'm an attorney by training. I know Ben Mansky, the campaign manager, and he's asked me to do legal work for the campaign. So I have been working on both making sure that the Jill Stein campaign got the federal matching funds that it was entitled to from the Federal Elections Commission, and now we're discussing the possibility of bringing a lawsuit or joining an existing lawsuit to ensure that Jill and other third parties get to participate in the debates. The fact that the debate was here in Denver, where I happen to live, was just a fortunate coincidence. It was actually great to see Jill and Rocky Anderson on Democracy Now! Doing the expanded debate. I thought that worked really well. I couldn't watch it, but I was listening to it on the radio, and I thought that's really great because Democracy Now! Is such a wonderful media platform. Amy Goodman is such a wonderful journalist that it was a great thing, but it was a distant second place to actually being on stage with the two major party candidates. Jill's ideas were every bit as valid and every bit as real as anything that Obama or Romney had to say tonight. I find myself agreeing with her much more than I do with either of the other two major party candidates, and it's just a shame that our debate system, the way it's developed over the last 25 or so years, excludes legitimate voices like Jill Stein's. She should have been on that stage. She would have done very well on that stage. America would have done very well to hear her on that stage.
At this point in Green Party's history, She talked about the perfect storm. Lots of great things can happen. Coming in at the point where you are right now, how do you feel knowing that about your involvement?
I'm very happy to be involved in the campaign. It's very satisfying work that I'm doing because I know it's in the public good. I have great respect for Dr. Stein, great respect for Sherry Honkala. I think they're doing a great job raising issues that need to be raised. Absolutely essential that they are raised, that neither one of the corporate parties are talking about. So it benefits society just to raise these issues. I'm glad we have Dr. Stein as the standard bearer for the Green Party because she's a great advocate for the cause.
What is happening now with the Green Party that the public should know about? Or for some people who are not familiar with the Green Party, what's the significance of the Green Party that you would want them to know if they were just being introduced to the Green Party?
Well, if a person has never heard of the Green Party before and they need to know what makes us stand out from the rest and why you would be green over either the two parties or a libertarian or a justice party or any of these other third parties, the Green Party is the only party that truly embraces a non-corporate atmosphere. We do not accept corporate donations. We totally embrace a non-violent platform, and that's a non-violent approach to everything. So in Greens, a lot of people who don't know Greens, they say, oh, you guys are in environmentalists and stuff. Oh, yes, but being green is more than just being environmental. There's a green ideology of working together, harmony. Violence isn't even on the table when you're trying to have a conversation. So to me, the whole idea of a debate, that's a violent idea. Really, what we want out of our politicians isn't to argue all the time. A good solid debate is fine if at the end of the debate you're coming together to then compromise and cooperate for the betterment of the American people. Because even though we are green and they are Democrats and they are libertarians, when you are elected to office, you are elected to represent all of the people. And I think that is what is missing from our democratic process in general. And I think it's up to people to really engage. If you don't feel engaged with your Democratic Party, maybe you should take one of these online questionnaires or talk to some of your friends about the potential of a third party. And the Greens, by and large, when I talk to someone, 3 out of 4 people are actually green. They just don't know it. They don't know their Green Party. So get in touch with your local Green Party and get to know them and start voting green.
My name is Bradley Harris. I'm running for County Commissioner, District 4 in El Paso County, Colorado. And I'm a big supporter of Jill Stein. I believe she needs to have a fair debate like the rest of the presidents. Anybody who's running for president needs to have a fair debate. It doesn't matter how much money you have to have a debate. If you're on the ballot and you qualify, you need to debate. It's very important for people that vote, especially to know who's running for their president. If you're not aware of everybody, then how is this even fair? How is this a democracy? If anybody can explain that process to me and why they aren't debating right now, because I don't understand. Money doesn't answer the question, so I need to be educated in this, because if I am going to be a voter, I want to make an honest and true vote based on the information of everybody who's running. And it's asinine to believe that Jill Stein cannot be up there behind a podium answering the same questions that Romney and Obama are being asked.
Thank you, and I have the same question for you. Provide your name and your campaign, and then also why you think it's important for all candidates who are on the ballot to also be a part of the debate.
My name is Karina Lemus. I'm running for El Paso County Commissioner, District 2.
And well, when you look at other Western democracies, they usually have 4 to 5 candidates running for office. And we don't see that here. And if we truly want debates that are representative of the population, we need to include as many candidates as possible. And Jill Stein's a viable candidate, and there are other viable candidates who aren't enough ballots to win, who are receiving federal matching funds or get more than 1% on credible national polls. So I think we should definitely include as many candidates as possible, and we won't have a true democracy until that is the case. I mean, the current CPD is very exclusionary and scripted, and that's just unacceptable.
Next question is, what do you think of Dr. Stein as the Green Party presidential candidate?
She is my personal hero. You see a superhero politically. I want, besides Jill Stein, you tell me who that is. You tell me who your hero is. Who's polling for you? Who's polling for our country? I don't see anybody that shows that, but Jill Stein. She represents our environment. She represents people. Human rights, civil rights, you name it. Mainly our environment. If we don't have a sustainable environment for our kids, then what are we here for right now? I don't want to live for this moment. I want to live for the future of my daughter and family to come.
Well, I think she's incredibly inspiring. She has all of the qualities that I think a leader should have. I mean, she represents all of the 10 key values, and she just has this ability to bring people together, I think, and get everyone excited about politics and try to move our nation forward. And I don't think I feel that with the other two candidates. And I used to believe in Obama 4 years ago, but his actions speak louder than words. But I truly feel that she walks the walk, and she can truly represent us and move our country forward.
What do you think about Dr. Stein as the Green Party's presidential candidate? What impresses you about her?
Everything impressed me about her. I mean, just her background, how she becoming concerned about genetically engineered foods, especially what was doing with her children, and then this movement and just being an activist against that. How she is very knowledgeable, and especially the new Green Deal. I mean, it's an actual plan. It just is not, we're going to do this, or we might do that, just trying to piece things together, but it is an actual plan. So that's what I she just is really impressive to me. I mean, she's very strong. She knows what she's talking about, and she has the same values, I think, as me. So. Mm-hmm.
Anything that you would like to add about the Green Party's progress that it's making historically?
Yeah, I think it's making incredible strides. To be honest with you, I'm fairly new to the Green Party, but just to see how it's growing, so especially in Douglas County, it's a very, very conservative county, but people are very interested in it. We had what we call a Greenfo table out in front of the Douglas County Library in Highlands Ranch, and we talked probably close to 35 to 40 people just getting information. So it's a neat. So people are interested. They just want to know what the Greens are, and a lot of them are unaffiliated voters. But again, even in a very conservative county, I mean, we're making progress. So it's cool. It's neat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all so much for coming out. Thank you for being here. Thank you for creating this incredibly exciting, historic moment we're in. And I have to give a big thank you also to Ben Mansky over there, who's been the most amazing campaign manager anyone could ever hope for, ever. When I called Ben Mansky about a year ago, I think it was a year ago, maybe a little more than a year ago, and I said, and I left him a message, and I said, I think this is a really important election coming up. Obama just put Medicare and Social Security on the chopping block as the solution to the debt ceiling crisis, which is what he did a year ago. And I said, we can't sit this out. Green Party's all about building locally from the grassroots up. But there's really an emergency going on, and we cannot let this outrage go unchallenged. So we need to run a race, and I'm wondering if you would consider being a campaign manager for this race. I had no idea whether he would call me back. And I was just the happiest person in the world when he not only called back, but he said yes, he would actually consider putting his life on hold and putting his work on hold in order to step up to the plate at this incredibly tipping point moment that we're at. So I just want to give a big thank you again to Ben. And what Ben is doing, we just find so many people are doing to just really, step out of their lives and what we're doing right now in their jobs, and people who've taken early retirements in order to capture this wave, this incredibly perfect storm of a moment that we're in, where we so badly need to change what's going on. We are at the breaking point for people and the planet and the economy and our democracy in no uncertain terms. But it also is this incredibly unprecedented, staggering moment where we have just a potential to change that I certainly have never seen in my lifetime, to where people are really breaking away from establishment politics, and the spirit of democracy and justice are breaking out all over the world and all over the country. And from the democracy revolutions in the Middle East to the uprising in Wisconsin, which still lives on. Let's hear it for Wisconsin. To the Occupy protests all over the country, which also live on. To the student strikes to stop tuition hikes and to fight for public higher education that should be free as it was intended to be. And for bailing out the students, not the banks. We should be breaking up the banks and bailing out the students. And the eviction blockades and the Keystone Pipeline civil disobedience, which is going on right now in Texas. Let's hear it for those incredibly brave people on Keystone. So, there is that social movement that's going on right now, and it deserves a voice in this election and a choice at the polls that's not bought and paid for by Wall Street, because walking into the voting booth and voting for either Wall Street-sponsored candidate basically gives them a mandate for 4 more years of the same, and that is the very definition of throwing away your vote. So in this campaign, we are calling for what the American people are actually clamoring for in poll after poll by large majorities. And it's been so exciting because many of us know who've been working on the Green Party and building the party for many years that we've been ahead of the curve. We've been ahead of the curve on green energy and on climate action and on peaceful, nonviolent conflict resolution. And on local economies, and on healthy, organic, sustainable food systems. Yeah, all those great things. We've been ahead of the curve, but now suddenly the curve has just caught up with us unbelievably. So what we're talking about now is what the American people really want in poll after poll. People are calling for jobs, not just tax breaks for corporations and the wealthy, but instead creating actual jobs here and now, which is what we're calling for with the Green New Deal. And as you know, this is not just a hypothetical idea, it's actually a plan based on what worked in the 1930s to get us out of the Great Depression. So it's based on the New Deal. It'll create 25 million jobs, put an end to unemployment, and jumpstart the green economy. And the great thing about that is that it puts a halt to climate change and it makes wars for oil obsolete. How about that? And it puts resources and power into the hands of communities to create the jobs that we need at the community level. And every community decides for themselves what it is. We provide national funding about the size of the last stimulus package, but instead of creating just 2 million jobs, we can create 25 million jobs because it actually puts the money directly into job creation. The stimulus package, it did create some directly, but it also created a lot of tax breaks. And unfortunately, tax breaks don't create jobs for all kinds of reasons. So very expensive, didn't do the job, but we can do that now. And the Green New Deal will create public works and public services so that you can actually go down to your employment office. Instead of going to your unemployment office, you can actually go down to an employment office and get a job if you're out of work. It also provides for startup money and grants and incentives for small businesses, community-based small businesses, and worker cooperatives to also create jobs in the green economy with clean renewable energy, healthy local organic food production, public transportation, clean manufacturing, and as well as all the social needs that communities need in order to be really sustainable for teachers, after school, child care, home care, affordable housing, drug abuse prevention and rehab and all that. So it's a broad spectrum of jobs and it's a win-win on the climate, on the economy, and on making wars a thing of the past. Because if you don't need that dirty oil, then there's no excuse to be fighting those wars on foreign shores. And that frees up hundreds of billions of dollars to actually pay for the Green New Deal and more. We're also calling for health care as a human right through Medicare for all. And as you probably know, it provides comprehensive coverage, covers all of you, as well as covering everybody. And it puts you back in charge of your healthcare decisions instead of having your employer say what they will or won't cover, and instead of having some profiteering CEO decide how they're, basically going to make money off of you and profiteer off your health care. Instead, you get to make the decisions, not them, and it saves us trillions of dollars over the next decade. So you got a choice here. They're trying to say austerity to solve these problems. Well, it turns out Medicare for all could solve just as much debt as the austerity programs that they're proposing. So between austerity and healthcare as a human right, how would you like to solve the debt? How about it? Okay, let's hear it for healthcare. Really, why not? What a no-brainer. And we're calling for education also as a human right. And that means from preschool through college education, that is tuition free as something we provide to the younger generation. And we know that it pays for itself. We know that from the GI Bill, when for every dollar that taxpayers put into college education for the returning GIs after World War II, for every dollar we invested, we got $7 back in economic benefits. So it more than pays for itself. There's no reason in the world not to go there. And while we're at it, instead of bailing out the banks, it's time to bail out the students. You probably know the You may not have, depends how closely, how much of a news junkie you are, but in the last week, the Federal Reserve announced it was undertaking another of these so-called quantitative easing programs where the Fed buys out the banks yet again, as if doing it for a third time is going to solve the problem when the first 2 times didn't. So we're saying instead of bailing out the banks who got us into this mess with their waste, fraud, and abuse, how about instead we do a quantitative easing for the students and we bail out the students and put an end to student debt? And finally, let's see, 2 things. One is that we want to downsize the military, cut it back to year 2000 levels. It's been doubled. We're not twice as secure. Exactly. In fact, we're less secure for having this brute militarism, this knee-jerk military force that is being exercised now as the president expanded the war from Iraq, surged the troops into Afghanistan, intensified the bombing in Pakistan on day 3 of his administration. Where were the Republicans that were forcing him to do that 4 years ago? You know, this was the Obama agenda, unfortunately. And then to expand the drone wars into Somalia and Yemen, and now they're talking about North Africa. Meanwhile, they're building bases around China, new bases, and the president has promised to spend $600 billion creating a whole new generation of nuclear weapons and modes of delivery. So we're standing up to say, no, thank you. Let's stop that new and dangerous arms race and this hyper-militarism that's making us less secure. If you just take a look at all the blowback around the Middle East that's happening right now, from the shooting of our soldiers by the Afghanis that they're supposed to be training, by the Afghani soldiers, to the unrest in Libya and actually all over the Middle East, the protests against the U.S. government and U.S. embassies right now. You know, it's clear that dropping bombs on weddings and funerals, like the drones have been doing, has not been a good way to win the hearts and minds of the Middle East. So we're going to bring the troops home and downsize the military and change our foreign policy from brute military force to international law and human rights. That is the road to international security. And finally, let me say, especially here in Colorado, since you have a referendum coming up on this, we're also calling for the legalization of cannabis and hemp. Because, as you know, marijuana and cannabis is a substance which is dangerous because it's illegal. It's not illegal on account of being dangerous. Because it's not dangerous. Exactly. I can say that with all the authority of an MD because it's actually true. And on day 1 in office, what a Green president could do if she wanted would be something really radical, and that is to instruct the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, to actually use science in determining what substances are going to be listed and which aren't. Because if science was used, there would be no scientific basis for making cannabis and hemp scheduled substances. On the first day in office, the president could also instruct the EPA to actually start protecting the environment. And could instruct, and that means to say no to to fracking, to more offshore drilling, to opening up our national parks and the Arctic, and no to nuclear power plants and a whole new generation this president is trying to build. And on the first day, the president can also say to the federal communications system that it's time to open up the public airwaves for use by the public. And that means creating a level playing field for all candidates, whether they have billions of dollars to buy TV advertising time or not. It's a level playing field for all candidates. The minute you do that, money goes out of politics because it won't do them any good anymore. We don't have to wait for Congress to pass a bill because the president actually has the authority to instruct the FCC to do that now. And that fundamentally means basically the end game for money in politics once media is turned back and the public airwaves are turned back to the public for equal use for qualified candidates. So. And the other thing, just to mention one last thing, the other thing that the president can do on day one is to start being not simply a commander-in-chief, but an organizer-in-chief. Because imagine what if, you remember hearing about the SOPA bill, the Stop Online Piracy Act, which was going to censor the internet. Okay, so word got out about this. It was considered a slam dunk. There was no way we were going to stop it, except that word leaked out. And when word leaked out, guess what? People were able to stop it because they had time to get in touch with their senators and say, no how, no way, don't you mess with my internet. It is our country. So just imagine if it was our democracy, because the president is in a position to basically be the whistleblower on Congress and to let people know every time an important bill is coming up, whether it should be a thumbs up or a thumbs down and why it would serve the public interest or not, and turn it over to the American people to actually talk to their elected officials, their legislators, their congressmen and women and their senators, and let them know why we need to bail out the students and break up the banks and bring the troops home and make public higher education for free and create health care as a human right and all that. Because if the public knew and could weigh in, we could actually pass these bills in the same way that the public was able to do the right thing on the SOPA bill. This should be the rule and not the exception for how Congress works. So last thing, I just want to emphasize what an incredibly, beyond my wildest dreams campaign this has been. I got into it thinking this would be the hardest campaign that I've ever been a part of in my life, but it's actually been exactly the opposite. This campaign has been like handing out candy at Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or whatever, because people are so hungry for what it is that we're offering. 90 million voters are estimated to be staying home this election because they know that neither Barack Obama nor Mitt Romney are going to serve them. They're not going to solve problems. They don't have a new idea in their brain. It's all about rerunning what isn't working. In fact, what's driving us in the wrong direction. So, and that's twice as many voters as are coming out to vote for either Mitt Romney or Barack Obama. Twice as many are voting with their feet to say that those corporate-sponsored candidates are not going to do it for us. So what does that mean? Or consider this, there are 36 million students and recent graduates who are basically indentured servants who do not have a future. This is like what created the momentum for the democracy revolutions in the Middle East. Basically the same thing. We could actually have our own Tahrir Square, our own Tunisia could be happening right here and right now if we can get the word out to the people who want to make the change that we're talking about. We can do that. We can do that. And one of the ways we can do that, it is in our hands. So it means going to our website, getting on Facebook, getting on Twitter, getting on the internet, and alerting your network that there really is a solution. I did a broadcast for C-SPAN 3 days ago, and the guy behind the camera, when he was done, said to me, "Wow, I've never heard anything like that before. I guess I have a reason now to go and register to vote." And I mean, we just hear this over and over again, that there are so many people who are hungering for what we've got. So it's all about getting the word out, and it's all about pitching in where you can. So that means signing up to volunteer, to do phone banking, to be canvassing, etc. We're just now, because we've been tied up in knots by design. If you're a true opposition party and you're not on the ballot, you're going to spend 90% of your campaign just getting on the ballot. But now, here we are. We're on the ballot for 85% of voters. Thank you for making that happen. We got federal matching funds for the first time, making history. And our challenge now is to fulfill the promise of the first 10 months of the campaign. By having made history in this way, we can fulfill the promise of this campaign if we can run a full-fledged campaign right now. So we're asking you, if you're able to make a contribution of whatever amount you can do that here tonight. You can also do it on the web. I'll let Ben maybe say a few more words about that. But I just want to put in the pitch for how much we can accomplish if we now drive this home. If we can raise for this last part of the campaign, for the general, the amount that we raised in the primary, which was about $500,000, that would enable us to basically hire the staff to really do the outreach, to mobilize the networks, the students, the homeless, the people who are facing foreclosure, the peace movement, which is really clamoring for a true peace candidate, the climate movement, which is desperate for a real climate candidate. For us to be able to get the word out, there are leaders and people of courage in all these movements who are ready to stand up to that politics of fear and to say no, that the politics of fear has brought us everything we were afraid of. It's time to stand up and lead the way with the politics of courage, and that's what our campaign is. If we have a fully funded campaign, and we can do it, on a bare bones budget, if we have that, and we can bring in, say we got nothing more than just the students, 36 million students, we could turn this election on its head. With 36 million students, they don't need convincing. They just need to know that we're here. Same thing for people facing foreclosure. They just need to know that they have the option. Same thing for people, facing climate disaster, who know that the Obama and Romney, neither of them are, they're both just driving us over the cliff. So by getting the word out, we can bring in enough votes that who knows what we could do. One thing we can do that is definitely to lock in where we are now. And we've come from undetectable to 1% to 2%. That is a huge achievement. And thank you all for making that happen. We can lock that in, but if we can go a little bit further, one possibility is that we could double that again, plus some, and get to 5%, which is a very hard thing to do. The system is, perfectly designed to prevent that from happening, but we can build on our success. If we get to 5%, that means we can hit the ground running in every election now for the next 4 years, because we will have ballot status. We don't have to spend the first 90% of a campaign getting on the ballot. We can do it from the very beginning. And the other thing it does is unleash a $20 million grant from the federal government for being a real major party. Just imagine, we've been able to do this with $500,000 basically. and maybe 1 million if we can double that. But imagine if we started off the next race with a $20 million grant and we're on the ballot. You know, it'll just be a whole new world of political possibility going forward. And we can drive home the solutions that are at hand, that our campaign represents. And for us to bring the Green New Deal into the public debate, healthcare is a human right through Medicare for all, public higher education, bailing out the students and downsizing the military and legalizing cannabis and hemp, it's going to be a whole new ball game. Those ideas will take on a life of their own if we're able to simply drive them forward into the limelight. So if we win the White House and turn it into a greenhouse, that's a great thing for the world. It'll be a better place. But we can also win the day by simply moving these solutions forward and turning this breaking point we face into the tipping point we need to take back our democracy and the future we deserve. Thank you all so much for making it happen.
Thank you.